Hey everyone, this is my 1967 Kaiser Jeep M109. It's a Deuce and a half, 2.5 ton off-road capacity military truck. It had the LDT 465 turbo diesel, the multifuel. I rebuilt a LDS, which is the same, basically the same engine, but it was put in the 5-ton versions from this era, and it spins instead of 2600 max RPM for an LDT, the LDS can go to 2900, so you get 300 RPM right off the bat. Also, the LDT was about 134 horsepower. This LDS is rated at 210. So this Deuce and a half will get going fast enough that the brakes become scary, so I don't drive it that fast. So what I'm doing today is, it's been sitting a little while, just had other projects. When I rebuilt this engine, I used aftermarket, well, not aftermarket, I used NOS exhaust and intake manifold gaskets, and the exhaust gaskets promptly started leaking. You can see exhaust all over the starter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the exhaust manifold off. I have to take the turbo off. I've already got the custom inlet pipe that I built off of it, and I got these gaskets. They're 50% crush. They're made by this company. That's the part number up there, 35-001. I don't remember how much they were. They weren't very much at all, and I think they were like 30 bucks. They've just been sitting inside so long, the packaging is sun faded. So I'm gonna cut out the exhaust portion of the gasket that's on there and leave the intake, because as far as I know, the intake is not leaking. If the intake is leaking, I should be able to tell when I get it off. If it is leaking, then I'll just buy another set of these and put them for intake and exhaust. So my Deuce, because of the LDS motor, has a custom exhaust and intake that I put on it. This is actually the intake filter from an M35A3 and the exhaust from an M35A3. And the A3s were a program where the Army took 3 old Deuce and a halves and built 2 trucks out of. They put different wheels on them. They put a Caterpillar, I think it was a 3116 engine in, and an automatic transmission. And I think they look ugly. A lot of people like them. They had a built-in hydraulic pump that they would put on the engine to run like a hydraulic winch on the front, and there were some different cool things about that, but I kind of like being able to burn almost anything in this engine. Plus you treat them right and they're just super robust. It's not hard to get parts. I actually have 3 whole spare engines laying around. But the reason why I put this on here is that the filter housing that went on here for the LDT, I believe it only passed 430 CFM. It's been a long time. And the LDT, that was fine. That was enough air. This is the LDS. And because you're building that more horsepower, you need more air. And I believe it said it needed 495 CFM. So I called the manufacturer, 495 CFM or 510, I don't recall. I called the manufacturer of the filter that goes in here, and they told me that this filter actually goes to 560 CFM, straight out of the manufacturer's mouth. So I installed an A3 filter housing, and then I cobbled together out of all these different parts, I'll show it later, a connection that goes between the filter, the intake, and the turbo. I also did a custom from the turbo to the exhaust for the muffler, and it really does quiet it down a bit, and it does not impede performance. So that I can tell. I mean, like I said, I can accelerate going uphill now. So let me get this manifold off and we'll continue from there. So, got the turbocharger out. There's 4 bolts. It's wet here because I sprayed it with some PV Blaster. You got to take the oil line off the top. Got to take your inlet off. It helps to actually remove the 4 bolts so the inlet can be popped off. Mine has the heater delete. So these are actually oil pan plugs, and they fit these holes real nice in the intake elbow. I don't remember the sizes. I don't. That one has a number on it. Let's see if anybody else is going to do that. It's flame heater delete. Looks like M2015 for that one. And I can't tell that one, but I'll see if I can find the information for those that want to do that. Flame heater on a multi-fuel, mounted on top right here, and what it did was it actually would inject raw fuel into the intake and light it on fire. There was basically a glow plug in there, and it was to help cold weather starting. I live in South Carolina. This thing's never needed it, so it's just another point of leakage. So I sent the return line. This is the return line that normally goes up to the flame heater. That now just goes down and ties back into the return line for the engine, for the injection pump. I want to do the spin-on filters. You take these cartridge filters off, you put a spin-on base on. The reason why there's rust all over everything is I rebuilt this motor, tore it down, put it all together again. Unfortunately, you kind of got to use NOS parts. I used NOS head gaskets, and my front head gasket blew on the first trip that I took. So I had to wind up being towed to the location and then changing the head gasket down there. So here's the intake. That's just some aluminum in there from the gasket. There's your exhaust. That's where the turbo bolts. You got 2 studs in the back, 2 bolts in the front. Your oil pump, that's actually the oil pump for Deuce and a half. This line here is what goes to the top of the turbo. Down here's your oil return. I'm just gonna set this nice clean bottle on there, even though I'm gonna put the lid down. Fits perfect. Now it keeps any junk from falling in there. I'm not too worried about anything building a nest in these holes. It's dark, so I'm gonna be done for today, but it's pretty much ready. I'll remove the dipstick tomorrow and loosen the 12 nuts, and that exhaust manifold will pry away. Cut out the old gaskets, set these new babies in there, and bolt it back down, and then just put it back together again. Got some new batteries to go in her, because like I said, she's been sitting a little while. So needs to run some, be up and down the road some more. This is a boat horn, and I'll blow it for you guys when I'm done with this project. But it's like really loud black boat horn. I got it. They were throwing it out when I was in the Navy. I put a 24-volt solenoid, and it connects to the normal. This wiring harness actually goes to one with an electric horn. There would have been an electric horn here because it was a 67, and so I just wired it straight in there, so that it works good. But that's all for tonight. I'll catch you tomorrow.